Good morning to all of you. Today we're still on Module 8. Where were you yesterday? Today we will study a city from the past. Today, the city from the past is the New York City. Let's take a look. Now open your textbook by page 78. Let's study.
Module 8. Our World. Social Studies.
A city from the past. This is a picture of New York City in the year 1900. It was very different then. There weren't any shopping centres or cinemas, but there were shops and theatres. There weren't many cars back then, but there were lots of horses and carriages. The streets of New York City weren't quiet. They were noisy and full of people, just like today.
After you get to know about it, let's learn about these two words. Noisy. Noisy. Noisy means you making a lot of sound. Carriage. Carriage. Carry goods or people from one place to another. They usually will use the horses. Take a look. How was this New York City look like from the past and now? Now, let's get to know what is the thing in the city. Picture 1. There weren't any shopping center or cinemas. There were shops and theaters. Picture 2. There weren't many cars. There were many horses and carriages. The streets of New York City weren't quiet. They were noisy and full of people. So all of it, 6 of these is in the city of New York. Now get learned. What do you think? What we learned was, wasn't, were, weren't. Do you still remember? The wasn't was the simplifier of the was not. The weren't is were not. How we use it? Was, wasn't is for one thing or peoples. Were, weren't for two or many. Please take note. Now let's study again the text.
Module 8. Our World. Social Studies.
A city from the past. This is a picture of New York City in the year 1900. It was very different then. There weren't any shopping centres or cinemas, but there were shops and theatres. There weren't many cars back then, but there were lots of horses and carriages. The streets of New York City weren't quiet. They were noisy and full of people, just like today.
After that, now take a look of Activity 2. What was there in New York City in the years of 1900s? So after we read all of it, now, did A, in the New York City, there weren't any shopping center. B, is there any cinema in the New York City? No, so there wasn't a cinema. C, yes, there were shops. Many shops in the New York City. There was a theater. E, do New York City got a bus? There wasn't a bus. How about a F? Yes, there was a car. And last one, G. There were many carriages. So which means C, D, F, and G was the thing in the New York City. Let's do some exercise about it. Please open your workbook, page 41, section G. Based on the passage on page 78 that we studied just now, in the textbook, complete the bubble map below. Remember, just write out the thing you can find. The things you can find in New York City during the 1900s. That's all from me. Thanks for your attention.